Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Bible study of 2 Kings, and we are in chapter 23 today. It's a bit of a longer one, so we're going to get it started very soon. Quick recap of chapter 27. We had Josiah, who's finally a good king again after the awfulness that was Manasseh and Ammon. And he found the book of the law, and they're renovating the temple after all the idolatry. And he was so devastated when he realized that Judah wasn't abiding by God's law. And he went to the prophetess to try and ask, what can we do to ease God's wrath? And the message was nothing. The time has come. We've had years of opportunities to repent, and there is no way to stop his wrath. But God did have mercy on him and said, because you had a tender heart and you came to me humbly in prayer, I'm going to make sure that you don't get to see any of the evil coming. So he's going to give him the sweet release of death. And we kind of pointed out yesterday that we tend to see death as a punishment. But in this case, it was given as a gift. We have to remember we have eternal life in him. This isn't the end. I like to look at it as our testing ground to get into heaven. We're here to find Jesus so that we can go be with him for eternity. So yeah, that was an interesting insight. Okay, so we're going to dig into chapter 23 today, and we'll see what happens with the rest of Josiah's reign. And the king sent, and they gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great, and he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in the house of the Lord. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord, to walk after the Lord, and to keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and all their soul, to perform the words of his covenant that were written in this book. And all the people stood to the covenant. I'm just going to have a sip of tea. So this is an interesting response. So Josiah learned that, okay, I'm not going to be subject to wrath, so he could have said, cool, I'm good. Just like one of his grandfathers, who did that, remind me? Hezekiah. So Hezekiah didn't care about future gens as long as he was alright. Well, Josiah had a different response. He really wanted to please and glorify God. So he wasn't just managing his kingdom, he wanted to manage God's kingdom. And he wanted to get the word out there. So what Josiah did is he got tucked in and he destroyed all the false worship everywhere and really established the true living God Yahuwah. And he got everyone into the temple and he led them into making a new covenant promise before God, just to keep the law that they'd heard. And everyone agreed. And the king commanded Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second order and the keepers of the door to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord all the vessels that were made for Baal and for the grove and for all the host to heaven. And he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron and carried the ashes of them out into Bethel. So now they've made a new covenant, it's clean up time. And he started in the temple. And Manasseh had turned that into an awful shrine to all these false gods. Like, I can't even imagine. And so they took everything out, burned it all. And it's a good kind of thing about sin in our lives too. When you see sin, sometimes you can't just go, oh, ignore it. You got to get rid of it. Get it out. If there's anything in your life that is causing you to stray from the Lord, get it out. And he put down the idolatrous priests whom the king of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places of the city in Judah, and in the places about Jerusalem, them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun, to the moon, to the planets, and to all the hosts of heaven. And he brought out the grove from the house of the Lord without Jerusalem, Kidron, and stamped it small to power, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the grove. And he brought all the priests out of the city of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burnt incense, from Geba to Beersheba, and brake down the high places of the gates that were in the entering of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand at the gate of the city. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of the Lord in Jerusalem, but they did eat the unleavened bread among their brethren. So he also got rid of the idolatrous priests, as he should, and he got rid of their high places, and the priests who had worshipped at these high places, which is good, he banned them from worshipping, serving at the altar. So, continue with our clean-up campaign. And he filed Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnon, that no man might make his son or daughter to pass through the fire to Moloch, of course. And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun, at the entering of the house of the Lord, by the chamber of Nathan-melech the chamberlain, which was in the suburbs, and burned the chariots of the sun with fire. And the altars that were at the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of the house of the Lord, did the king beat down, and break them down from thence, and cast the dust of them in the brook of Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mount of corruption, which Solomon the king of Israel had builded for Ashtoreth, the abomination of the Zidonians, for Chemoth, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of children of Ammon, did the king defile. And he brake in pieces the images, and cut down the groves, and filled their place with the bones of men, made it into a graveyard. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high places which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, both the altar and the high place, he brake down, and burned the high place, and stamped it to small powder, and burned the grove. So even though he'd got all these reforms in place, it looked like he was only just getting started. He got rid of thank goodness he got rid of the place that they were doing child sacrifice. He also got rid of items that they were used to worship the false gods. He even got rid of the whole idolatry neighbouring Bethel, and took down the altar that King Jeroboam had built. He really went on a serious clean-up campaign. And as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were there in the mount, and sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres, and burned them upon the altar, and polluted it, according to the word of the Lord, which the man of God proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. Then he said, What title is that I see? And the men of the city told him, It's the sepulchre of the man of God, which came from Judah, and proclaimed these things that thou hast done against the altar of Bethel. And he said, Let him alone, let no man move his bones, so they let his bones alone, with the bones of the prophet that came out of Samaria. And all the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the king of Israel had made to provoke the Lord to anger, Josiah took away, and did to them according to all the acts that he had done in Bethel. And he slew all the priests of the high places that were there upon the altars, and burned men's bones upon them, and returned to Jerusalem. Wow. So while he was in Bethel, he saw the tomb of the prophet who had foretold him and predicted his future actions. So he ordered for his bones and another prophet not to be disturbed, and he continued his purge of idolatry. My notes comment here that because he was able to freely move in that region, it shows that the Assyrian Empire was weakening at this point. And the king commanded all the people, saying, Keep the Passover unto the Lord your God, as it is written in the book of this covenant. Surely there was not hidden such a Passover from the days of the judges that judged Israel, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor the kings of Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, when this Passover was holden into the Lord of Jerusalem. So after all that, he went to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. Verse 22 here, it says, they haven't seen this kind of faithfulness since the time of Judges. It goes to show the power of just one person. No matter what everyone was like before you, you can be the one to change and change the course of so many lives and history, really, just through faithfulness to the Lord. So the time of Judges, get on a timeline here, is about 5 centuries. Moreover, the workers with familiar spirits, and the wizards and the images and all the idols and all the abominations that were spied in the land of Judah and in Jerusalem, did Josiah put away, that he might perform the words of the law which were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in the house of the Lord. And like unto him Was there no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart, and with all his soul, and with all his might, according to the law of Moses? Neither after him rose there any like him. Go Josiah! You're an underrated king. I don't think I've heard of Josiah before. I feel like he's very important. Underrated. No one talks about him enough, in my opinion. He did a huge thing. And notwithstanding, the Lord turned not from the fierceness of his great wrath, wherewith his anger was kindled against Judah, because of all the provocations that Manasseh had provoked him withal. And the Lord said, I will remove Judah also out of my sight. I was waiting for that one. As I have removed Israel, and will cast off the city in Jerusalem which I have chosen, and the house of which I said my name shall be there. So he did a great thing. He got rid of the occult. He got rid of all the occultism. He did everything right, and there was no one like him. He was so good, but even that was not enough to stop God's wrath coming. So although Josiah was one of Judah's absolute greatest kings, they had been sinning for such a long time that justice needed to be served. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In his days Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went against him, and he slew him at Megiddo, when he had seen him. And his servants carried him in a chariot, dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own sepulchre. And the people of the land took Jehoaz the son of Josiah, and anointed him, and made him king in his father's stead. So Josiah died at battle, and he was 39 apparently. He was trying to stop Pharaoh from linking with the Syrian army. No. So, while that's sad, it was part of God's plan. It was merciful action, removing the king from the scene, because I presume his wrath is coming now, as he said it would. So Jehoaz, there's another Jehoaz now. Like I said, I get confused, and a lot of the names are very similar too. So Jehoaz is the new king, Josiah's son. Okay. Jehoaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Humatal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. Why? You had such a great dad who was showing you the right way. It goes to show each of us are on our own journey with the Lord, according to all that his father had done. And the Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to tribute on 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. So sadly, he went back to the evil ways, and this is what God knew this was coming. That's why he said, as good as you are, Josiah, you're not going to be enough to save the nation. They cannot be saved because people are disobedient. And as we see, just the very next king, his own son, was evil. But soon he was imprisoned by the Pharaoh, and Judah was put under a very heavy tribute again, and they had to pay a lot. And Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim, and took Jehoaz away. And he came to Egypt and died there. And Jehoiakim gave the silver and gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted silver and the gold of the people of the land, one of everyone according to his taxation, to give it unto Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Zebudah, the son of Pedaiah of Rumah, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all his fathers had done. So Pharaoh kicked Jehoaz off the throne and put his older brother on the throne, and then changed his name. That's all power trip stuff, and everyone suffered heavily through the tax. But he still carried on being evil, the next king as well. What must God be thinking? He's like, I just took you through an entire exodus, and here you are, back under Egypt. What have we been doing for all these centuries to end up back here? Like, all we had to do was be obedient. Yet they consistently chose disobedience, and you only get the odd good king that tried to steer everyone back, but then, as God always knows, they were going to come back. They were rebellious, and that's why he knows judgment has to happen, because it's just going to keep continuing, and it's just sending people down horrible path. So there we go, chapter 23. What a disappointing turnaround. We were doing so well, Josiah, bless him. Actually the first part of this chapter was incredible. It just ended really disappointingly. But Josiah did a great thing, and he's an underrated king, I suppose because his story is short, but what he did was amazing. He really wiped it clean and was faithful to the Lord, and he was saved from seeing the destruction of Judah. So there we go, we've got chapter 24 next, and then 25, and then we're done so soon. I have to look at where we're going next. Ooh, okay, exciting. I'll tell you later. You have to find out later. Right, so join me tomorrow for chapter 24. Please leave any takeaways that you have. Like the video if you liked it. Leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss our future videos. We do this every weekday, moving through the book as far as we can get until the good Lord takes us or we lose internet or whatever happens. So I'm going to keep going for as long as God gives me the strength to. So yeah, God willing, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a blessed day, and don't forget, Jesus loves you. Bye!